Hi, I'm Mark Christman from Ars Nova Workshop in Philadelphia.
I'm Danielle Jackson, Curator at Artist Space New York, and we're here at ICALA on the occasion of Milford Graves' Fundamental Frequency.
We're about to take you on a short tour. Let's get started. Milford was best known as a free jazz drummer, an extraordinary one at that, but his life went way beyond the stage and the performing arts. Milford's life was an extraordinary multidisciplinary endeavor that straddled the arts and the sciences.
Milford's home was divided into a series of laboratories, some for sort of heart rhythm experiments, and some for acupuncture sessions, and some for garden sessions. He had a community garden just outside of his home, which is what you see here, is him actually gardening, watering the plants, eating directly from the plant, because he believed that eating directly from a plant, like, you could ingest cosmic energy. Another key section of the show is centered around Milford as an acupuncturist. He was self-taught, but he was often, as a musician, traveling to places like Japan. But he would often invite acupuncturists to his home to teach sessions. He was also a professor at Bennington College for over 40 years. So here what you see is actually Milford teaching acupuncture strategies, techniques to Bennington students. And now we're moving into a section that is kind of all around Milford's sort of research on the heart rhythms, and also the sort of gallery for his sculptures. As a younger artist, Milford was very much beloved by other famous jazz musicians, like, for example, Miles Davis. But there was a certain point in his career where he decided that he wanted to focus on heart rhythms. He actually studied as a laboratory technician to learn how to do that.
Milford's lifelong investigation in the heart and the heart rhythms leads to a Guggenheim Award. He invests the majority of this grant into additional technology, hardware, software. So what you're hearing and seeing in this room is Milford employing engineering software to begin to look deeply at the heart, its microrhythms, and he begins to understand, kind of in a very progressive way, how the microrhythms of the heart, can lead to certain healing practices.
There was a martial arts practice that Milford developed called Yara. And it's a practice that draws upon the movements of the praying mantis, mixes boxing and African ritual dance. And it's really something that Milford was practicing in his home dojo in Jamaica, Queens, and bringing together other people in his community. In this vitrine is actually a series of images documenting his Yara practice in his dojo with community members over the span of like 20 years, probably. Milford was someone who constantly decorated his dojo, but through these images, you actually get to see how it morphed and changed over time. The materials themselves come from a Yara practitioner named Yuji Agamatsu, who is a New York-based artist who is probably one of the reasons why, through photographs, this practice actually is documented. He spent a lot of time doing that for Milford, specifically as a gift to him. And now we're moving into a section that really documents Milford Graves' musical journeys, travels, and networks. So one of the first things that we wanted you to encounter with the show is a series of hand-painted records that he created with Don Pullen as a part of his recording label Self-Reliance Program. Milford had his own record labels, which is what's incredibly unique about him. He, didn't depend on mainstream labels and was actually quite skeptical of them. So here you have Just a series of hand-painted record, a total of 10, is probably the most that has ever been in one space. We can talk about the drum set. Yeah.
Drum set.
One of the centerpieces of this section, alongside the hand-painted records, is Milford's personal drum set. And you can see he hand-painted it. So it's like through these hand-painted records and these drum sets, you can see how actively that was a part of his practice. And sort of next to it, you see a video of Milford performing. He's, being very expressive.
Nice.
It's like an explosion of energy. And I would say these next two vitrines document a collaboration between Milford Graves and a Japanese free jazz musician, Toshi Tushitori. It documents Milford's first time going abroad to Japan in 1977 and doing his first sort of musical session, a piece called Meditation Among Us. In it, he plays the drums and he plays the piano, which is why it's so iconic. This vitrine next to me is also from 1977. Milford spent time in Japan and Nigeria in the same year, and it was sort of really pivotal for his practice. He went there to Nigeria as a part of Fast Act 77, which then was sort of the largest Pan-African festival that had happened in the world.
Throughout the exhibition, you also get to see some of Milford's costumes that were made almost as a collaboration with his lifelong partner, Lois Graves.
And so in this section, you'll notice a series of photo blow-ups that were photographed by a sound artist named Aki Anda, who is now based in Japan. But what we found out during the research process of doing this show is that Aki was very much a fan of both Milford and Min Tanaka, and had kind of heard about a concert that was happening between the two of them. And at 15 years old, he photographed it. This room is, I think at its core, kind of a study center. There's sort of research archival material around you, but also there's a listening station where you can listen to some of his most iconic release records, but also two unreleased records, which is why you have the sort of ghost line, because there is no image for those concerts yet, but they will be released later this year. So there's this sort of merging of past and present, but the sort of arching sound in here is really from this concert that he did in Sweden, kind of a vibrating gong sound, which almost feels like a radiating hum throughout the space. It's a drum feeling so palpable, it's like your heart is racing.
As a young man, Milford was acclaimed by the jazz and music critical establishment. He was applauded by Downbeat magazine. He was on seminal recordings as a young man, but at the same time, Milford is studying to become a medical technician. He had much more than a passing interest in music's impact on the body.
Thank you so much for joining the Milford Graves Fundamental Frequency Tour. It means so much to us to bring this exhibition to LA and to alert more people to the great works of Milford Graves.
Milford Graves Fundamental Frequency is up until May 14th. Come and explore.